I'm excited today because we have Sam Sida talking about big bets versus small bets in product discovery. And I've known Sam for a while because we worked at Telstra together almost a lifetime ago in product.
True.
Sam is a seasoned product leader with diverse career spanning B2B, SaaS, startups, and e-commerce. Sam kicked off his journey as a software engineer at IBM, working on data analytics for telcos. After completing his MBA at INSEAD, he transitioned into product management where he's thrived. Like he's launched a customer experience platform monitoring 200 million users, grew a collaboration app to 1.6 million daily active users, founded Cyberassist, an AI-powered assistant for cyber analysts, where I saw him again because we both did Antler at the same time. Is that right, Sam?
Yeah.
Roughly.
2021.
Yes, I was close. 2020, you were 2021. He led seller experience innovations at the Iconic, and now he's doing great things at Vinnies. Sam has a knack for balancing customer needs with business outcomes. He brings a practical approach to product discovery using tools like opportunity solution trees and continuous business casing to create products that deliver. I think you and I are one of the most resourceful product people in terms of creating and just getting things done. So I'm really excited to have you here, Sam. Welcome, and
Thanks.
over to you.
Great. Thanks for the intro. I'm excited to be on the other side today. And yeah, the idea is to share my experience in product discovery. Obviously, product discovery is maybe the youngest practice in product management, still evolving with different flavor. And one thing I found quite different is the way to handle big bets versus small bets. I was thinking about the title, the check raise of product discovery. Like in poker, you check whether you hand worth it, and then you raise later. So there will be a few allusion to poker, although I'm not a big player. So maybe I'll share my screen. It will be this one.
I'm not a big player, Sam, but then when you started talking about bets, I went, oh, that's the Annie Duke book. Let me go refresh on that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so for me, the idea is to see along the cycle of discovery, what are the places where we can separate and work differently, whether it's a small bet, like an A/B test on a call to action, or big bets that can be something that creates a pivot for your company. So let's dive into it. Check. And at the end of the day, I organize this kind of prioritization in 3 phases with some ceremonies attached to the phases, but at the end of the day, it's really moving opportunities in those 3 phases: insights, experiments, and strategy. And one thing I'd like to focus on is to have a user-centered approach, user-centered, inspired by user-centered design, as opposed to a lot of approach focus too much on the strategy first and try to move into confirmation bias. So for me, it's important to create the insights with an open eye, having a broad perspective, and then of course, with your strategy, you refine what you need to learn. So that's the 3 phases: insights, experiments. Yeah, it's about validating your learnings. So we don't do too many MVP. We call it minimal viable experiment. So whatever experiment will allow you to validate or invalidate your assumption. And to organize that, we use a Kanban of experiments. And then from that, we move into the strategy. We have to make sure it aligns and create value towards your product vision. And we do continuous business casing. I think in product management, there's been a lot of sometimes yearly, annual planning when you have to do a business case at a specific time. I think with continuous discovery, there is an opportunity to do continuous business casing. So if we jump into the first phase, insights, it's pretty much twofold. The qualitative, I think it's always important to listen to your customers with full empathy, as opposed to trying to confirm an idea. I think technologists, we tend to fall in love with a solution. So here's the chance to really listen without a solution in mind. And a good complement to interviewing, continuous interviewing. I think one interview a week is the minimal, is to do a shadowing, because quite often what people say is not what they do. So you want to shadow how they use your product. So maybe could be live, a bit like a design sprint, final day when you can check how people use the product. Or nowadays we use more and more film recordings to compare for a specific persona, or even the same person, compare what they were doing to what they said in interviews. And all of this going to a research repository, which takes the form of a wall of pain. So the idea is to collect all the findings from interviews and recorded sessions. So we got snippets of different interviews along the wall. Obviously, it depends on your domain. The e-commerce is quite established, the journey. Pretty much all e-commerce have a awareness or acquisition, landing, could be activation in the B2B space, search and discovery, and then it's about retention and delivery. Obviously, pretty much apart from digital goods, every e-commerce involved delivery. So what we do, we position everything we heard a few times along the wall in the right episode, awareness or landing, and ranked by severity and frequency are the two way to rank the different things. So it could be really ongoing in e-commerce. There's a lot of small things we hear repeatedly, like filters. It's quite it can make a big difference to have the right filter in the right category and to be able to filter after search. And obviously, it's quite impressive that the landing on the e-store happens more and more in the PDP, the product detail page. Not many people land on the homepage. So you need to make sure it's a fluid experience. So that's the way to synthesize the qualitative analysis, and then we complement. So the left is qualitative, right quantitative, and the quantitative, obviously, we have more and more statistics. Between telco, there was already a lot. Every single mobile phone and base stations were generating like 10,000 points every 15 minutes. But now, in e-commerce, we also have a lot of data points, B2B as well. So behavior analytics being at the top of the range, surveys, NPS surveys, and we do a lot of episode NPS surveys to get a specific view on each episode. Then maybe B2B, we have a lot of good views from the sales, the demo calls on Gong. You can analyze the transcripts. Loss reasons for CRM is very valuable. And in both in B2B, B2C, support tickets or transcripts of support calls are all great sources, but they are quite diverse and difficult to make sense of them. What we do, we always segment. So first, which persona was talking. We can slice it per segment, and then we do. If we don't have the episode NPS, we know which episode it was. Was it landing or search? But if it's tickets or if it's calls, we need to infer that. So we do a topic analysis to find out what they were talking about, and then sentiment to find out for this persona talking about this episode, what is the current sentiment. And we do a deviation quite often it's about monitoring a change, so the deviation. So it's yeah, maybe it could be different. E-commerce is good because it's quite established, so we can generate some customer experience indicators. Sometimes they are a bit difficult to read, but the key is to review the changes, and we put that in a heat map. We create the customer experience heat map, and the numbers by themselves don't make too much sense. We call it the CEI, customer experience indicator, but the idea is to see how they're tracking compared to the previous month or previous quarter. So we can analyze. It doesn't have to be demographics. It could be different persona. You can analyze: are the Gen Z not really having a good experience on the awareness or acquisition, but they are having a great experience on delivery. So all of this coming from NPS survey, behavior analytics, and tickets and transcripts. And at the bottom, we also have the episode star metric. Everybody talk about the North Star metric for the vision, and we kind of slice it into episode specific. So click-through rate on acquisition, bounce rate on the landing, etc. So that's a strong way to compare where are the pain points on both qualitative and quantitative. And from that, here I didn't talk too much about the ideation, but we usually do brain writing, which is kind of a brainstorming but offline. So we do identify opportunities that align well with the pain points from the insights. So this is the second phase, experiments. So we start flashing out which one first are the assumptions associated with our potential initiatives. And usually they're always in the flavor of desirability, feasibility, viability. And we do the classic assumption mapping. Is it important for the success of the product? Is it moving the needle of the North Star metric and the product vision? And then do we have evidence? So the certainty, horizontally, do we have evidence that is critical or not? So we want to start with unknown critical. If we know that it's critical to the success, but we have little evidence, these are the high risk. This is the opportunity to de-risk by doing some experiments on these first. And from once we selected the assumptions, we need to clarify. Then we plan, we schedule those experiments. So we use Kanban. That's the good thing about Kanban. We pretty much have a fixed number of experiments per sprint. So we still align the sprints, discovery sprints with kind of delivery sprints. So people can move or participate in both ideally. And in terms of prioritization, we also do desirability experiments first. So if it's not desired, there's no point of the feasibility or viability. And we do feasibility. We kind of do that through the experiments. We try to find out, is it easy? Like, do we have a way to build it well? And the viability, we kind of use the fake door surveys, and still in the loop. If we can get some more insights from data, we use it for viability as well. So a bit like the agile definition of ready, definition of done. We want to make sure before they enter the board of experiments, making sure they are painful and frequent is the definition of ready, and also having a clear metric and threshold to validate or invalidate the experiment. And the definition of done is pretty much to reach statistically significance. Maybe one interesting piece is the top right is the locked variable, because sometimes we reach a point where people are testing too many things across the journey. or testing on the same episode is the challenge. We can actually test delivery, an experiment on delivery, and another experiments on search. They don't impact each other, but you don't want to do take two experiments on search, otherwise you don't know which one was driving the results. And so for each of these cards that move from ready, scheduled, in progress, done, we have an experiment card. So it's part of the definition already. We need to make sure there is a time frame, a clear hypothesis, and with a clear action. What are we going to do? What are we going to measure? And what is the threshold to validate or invalidate? So we move this card on the Kanban board. So this was just an example of we try to keep simple on UX prototyping, just the minimal viable experiment that can confirm your hypothesis. And from these experiments, we also go back to the journey map. We use the journey map quite a lot with a product called Smaply. If you haven't used this one, it's pretty good. You can move from customer journey map of different flavor. And this one is a map of validated learnings. So as you go through your experiments, or sometimes straight from insights, you can have some learnings that you keep on adding with different confidence, and you can have streamlines potentially. But yeah, the idea is to, as we learn, for example, shoppable looks on Instagram converts 34% more. We've seen that. We know we have a high confidence. Actually, high confidence is the lower, like Hotmail destinations go to junk folders. That we see a lot. We are confident about this learning. So yes, it's also mapped along the journey. So it's also a way to prioritize the big bet versus small bet. First, go to the high confidence learning that you know will have an impact. And from that, we move into the strategy. So we accumulate learnings, and we want to guide what do we want to learn. Because there was my view that you should not frame your discovery strategy. So you want to learn as much as possible, but at the end of the day, you still need to converge, making sure you do the research of the critical elements. And so it's still a bit like Teresa Torres opportunity solution tree. But what we found that the OST always start with a business outcome. We want to increase retention, increase revenue by X, and it's not really user focus. And I think starting from the top, from the user outcome, and then the biggest user outcome is actually your product vision. So that's why you also call it the product vision slicing. So the idea is to slice it into a sub element, and for e-commerce, it can also be the episode, because one of the job for the user is to be able to maybe awareness, to be able to assess your alignment with the brand, search, being able to search efficiently. So we found that there is a good way to slice them in cumulatively, I can't pronounce this one, exhaustive and mutually exclusive. The idea, you don't want to have repeats or different things, but job to be done tend to be a product vision, tend to be a build of elements that are job to be done. And then from the job to be done, building the vision, we review the drivers and deterrent. So there's always a set of drivers and deterrent for each job, which are pretty separate. And from that, we review opportunities to move the driver or move the deterrent. So we also use Miro for that. This is a good way to align OKR. We try to create some swim lane, vertical swim lanes actually, that are OKRs. So that the idea that your research then align with your quarter or monthly OKRs, but always start with the user-centered design. So it's like impact mapping, starting with the user outcome as opposed to the business outcome. And from there, so that guides kind of the other piece of the cycles. One pretty much kind of a stage gate we always go through is the value versus effort prioritization. So we want to start with high value. You start with high value, low effort, the quick wins, and then through the experiments, you validate high value, high effort, the big bets. So that's here. You really want to having a clear view. What are the big bets, quick wins, and small bets? And usually I try to kind of share the velocity. So do some quick wins because there's great value. But if you keep on doing quick wins, you don't really move the needle towards your product vision. So try to get a bit of maybe 50% of my dev velocity on big bets and not consume the whole bandwidth on quick wins, maybe 20%. And obviously, high effort, low value, you want to park them until the market changes. And the next step on the strategy, and maybe another piece of prioritization, could be, I think it's strong in B2B SaaS and e-commerce, is to do a bit of a reverse funnel prioritization. The idea is a bit like we say in the big bets and small bets. The basic needs tends to be big bets because you really want to have a strong core, and then you add the delighters, which are quick wins. But it's important to start doing quick delighter early. We don't want to have a vanilla product. You want to differentiate your product quickly. So having a strong base and delighters from the get-go, so also maybe 50%, 20%. So the idea is you nail that first. First, you need to nail the basic needs. Then you have delighters. There's no need to fill up your funnel if the experience is bad. So you nail the retention, nail the onboarding, and really put a lot of effort on acquisition later when you get a great and solid proposition. We also use this in our continuous business casing, but we realize that at the end of the day, the basic needs, they are your monthly active user. And you bring people to your product for the basic needs. Usually they use free the premium if you have premium. And then the RPU is your delighter proposition, so that you can command a higher price because you have delighters. So your revenue is pretty much basic needs and delighters is drive your revenue, which is RPU times monthly active user. At the same time, you don't want to make all of this at the cost of profit. So you want to keep an eye on the cost of acquisition, the CAC, and the cost to serve. So mainly onboarding, support, and your retention focus will drive your CLV, customer lifetime value. So it's because you create revenue through the proposition, because you manage to get a profitable proposition, that then you can really emphasize on a high retention to drive a great customer lifetime value. And so that's the third phase inside experiment strategy.
So Sam, experiments are very much about saying how this change is going to impact the financial bottom line, the scorecard that every company is looking at, right?
Yeah, but it tends to be twofold. I can see a lot of experiments focus on the revenue, so driving users, when experiments on the reducing cost tends to be of a different nature.
Maximizing profit.
Yeah, maximizing profit. So usually it's about reducing your CAC by focusing on the right acquisition channel, or reducing the cost to serve, trying to do more self-serve portal, less human in the loop. And so the next slide is actually my recap. We've been maybe too quick, not too bad. So yeah, the recap is about for the insights. So you listen to a lot of people, and I think the importance is to focus on the deviations, because you tend to argue on a fixed number. That's why our customer experience indicator by themselves, they don't really matter. What matter is the deviation from the previous period. Yeah, so the idea is to have a consistent insight coverage. So that's why it's good to do a broad insight analysis, as opposed to trying to go for a confirmation bias of a strategy or a solution you have in mind.
That's the trap that happens, right? Confirmation bias. We've seen people do that.
True. Well, at the end of the day, you still have to align your research towards your vision, but yeah, not really doing exactly the research for a specific initiative starting next quarter. So yeah, the continuous nature of it is critical, and putting everything in the wall of pain is also a great communication tool, because everybody understands the journey at a high level. They can see the pain points on the wall, and you can even click on a video snippet of an interview or recordings, shadowing recordings. So yeah, we didn't talk too much about it. They're separating the problem space. So pretty much the insights and some experiments are still in the problem space. But once you got assumptions to validate, these assumptions are attached to a solution most of the time. And then so yeah, we prioritize the most risky assumptions, which know is important to move the needle of the product vision. And instead of doing an opportunity solution tree based on the business outcome, we do a user first. So the user outcome being at the top, and the top one being the transformation of your user. The one other interesting view that the realizing your product vision is actually transforming your customer by borrowing your product. He becomes an augmented customer. So yeah, you kind of transform and augment your product, and that's the vision. The vision is not a product. The vision is your transformed customer. And then yeah, still using an opportunity solution tree is a good way to visualize what to focus on. And usually we also go back to the heat map. So we want to make sure we focus on a zone that is red, which what is the weakest episode or the weakest job to be done. And then a reverse funnel. Maybe reverse funnel is maybe more of a startup prioritization, but still an important lens to keep. So yeah, that was the set of slides. But I think the most interesting piece is to, as this event is a chat, right, Irene?
Yeah. I really like that wall of pain. Although I wonder if that just demoralizes the team. Because I think there's a wall of joy as well, right? The customer journey map is not just pain. There's like opportunities that people are happy that you can amplify and grow, right?
We should have the wall of joy. Should the heat map give a bit of this, we have some red section and some green section.
Yeah.
It doesn't talk as much as a video recording of somebody happy.
The heat map is good because you can see who in your audience is really happy in that area, and you could see if you could amplify, get them to refer, recommend, upgrade, whatever, right?
True, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. I haven't used it that way too much. That's a good idea. You should, instead of focusing on the red, use the green and make them advocate.
It depends what the problem is that you need to solve, right? If your problem is I need to, we're losing customers and I need to go find that point and pain, the points where there's pain and friction, and I need to remove them because I'm losing customers. I can't lose customers. That's not why we're here.
True, yeah. We are friction cleanser.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Find and eliminate. Hey, there's some questions in the chat. So Aidan, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. It's interesting because we are also experimenting with this whole sort of framework. And one of the problems that my last comment was around the confirmation bias. And what I've observed is some of our team members approach this assumption with, for example, we're gonna reduce the drop off, we're gonna reduce the churn, whatever that assumption is, by that particular activity. And because there's an inward pressure of like you want to actually show this experiment, they actually result in whatever you assume is going to happen in that funnel. And it's really tough to get people out of that mindset because you want to prove, because you want to show that your assumption was correct. How do you actually take away that bias? Because we are only human, and we want to show good results at the end of the day.
True. I think the best when you can is to have different people. So because this is kind of following the dual track agile, when you have a track on delivery, a track on discovery, and people move on between sprints. So ideally, someone who generated maybe an idea will not be the same person running the experiment. So I think a rotation along the two tracks is a great thing to have if you have enough people.
Understood.
Otherwise, apart from the best is having different people. Otherwise, just being honest in as we go through that as a group. As I think products tend to have a good level of honesty, but yeah, but still a bias to get the best idea.
Yeah, the goal is solve the problem. It's not solve the problem by XYZ, this experiment I want to do. And so you want to just prove it as quickly as possible. So you don't have to run the experiment for long, right? You gotta have some guardrails, like I'm only going to run it for a month and it's a win and we're going to implement it if XYZ happens. And if XYZ happens less than that period of time, less than a month, then we're going to stop the experiment and go. We're just going to do it. But if it fails, great, we've learned something. Next opportunities, kind of next way we might solve that problem. Let's go experiment that. Because there's so many ways to do these experiments, right?
That's true. That's why it's good to have the opportunity solution tree, so that you focus on one problem and then you test different solution within that leaf, that branch. And it's true, it's always a challenge, but we want to have a fixed duration, but you don't know how much data you're going to collect within this period. So if you don't have enough sample, so you say, okay, let's carry on for one more sprint, and maybe it's opening the door to cheating, waiting for the metrics to go your way.
Yeah, that makes sense.